friends. Welcome to the Creative Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Caldwell, and I'm so happy you're here. Each episode, I take some time to chat with fellow artists about life, faith, and the impact of the arts. Hey friends, and welcome to episode 125. If you didn't already know, we are officially on YouTube now with the podcast. So if you're not already watching right now, you can go to YouTube and find us at Creative Impact Podcast and go ahead and subscribe to the show. We would love to be able to connect with you there, and you can leave comments, which is going to be really fun. So I'm excited to hopefully build a little more of a sense of community with all the podcast listeners, that you guys can connect a little bit more as well. I'm so excited for today's episode. I get to chat with Lauren Spangler, and Lauren is a creativity coach, and she also is an artist herself as a painter, writer, and a musician. And so she definitely gets the artist life and some of the struggles and challenges that we face every single day. So if you are wanting a little bit more fulfillment in your work, or to try to find balance in your work as an artist, Lauren really helps to bridge that gap between our vision for what we want our life to look like and then the reality that sets in of just all the different things to juggle. You know, we know. So grateful for Lauren. And what's super fun is we not only get to hear from Lauren, but you will also get a sneak peek of what it would be like to work with Lauren as your coach. So Lauren super graciously offered to do like a little mini coaching session with me today. And so you're going to get to hear some kind of behind the scenes, a little bit vulnerable elements of where I am at in my creative journey right now. And man, it was so helpful. So I'm really excited for you guys to listen in. I hope it is an encouragement to you. I hope that you find it really helpful, that you're able to connect to some of the things that maybe you are struggling with right now through our conversation, and find a little step forward, a path forward in that. And we will mention it again at the end of the show, but Lauren is offering a free 30-minute discovery call that you can do with her. It's super simple. You go to the link laurenspangler.com/impact, like Creative Impact Podcast. So laurenspangler.com/impact, and you'll be able to sign up right there for an appointment time to get to meet with Lauren for a 30-minute complimentary discovery call. Lauren is also a wife and a mother of two, and she just has such a great heart and great wisdom to share with us today. So enjoy my conversation with Lauren Spangler. I am so excited to be here today with Lauren Spangler, and she is a creativity coach as well as an artist herself. So I'm super excited to have you here. Thanks for joining me, Lauren.
Thanks for having me, Rachel. This is an absolute treat, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation. So thank you.
Yes, it's going to be so good, and I'm excited because we're going to flip the mic a little bit later, I think, and do a little like mini coaching session, which will be super fun.
That'll be a blast.
So just to get started, I would love to let you share a little bit about your background and kind of what got you into the arts in the first place, and then how we'll go into more detail, but just like the brief overview, I guess, of your journey.
Absolutely. So I've always loved to paint, to draw, to sing, to write music. So as a young kid, I was always usually either at the piano or somewhere with a sketchbook. So I went to school for music theory and composition, and was a singer-songwriter after college for a couple years. And then I wound up also working in corporate and developing this totally separate, what I thought of as this separate life as a corporate strategist, and built a career there, which I also love and still do. And I also work as a creativity coach. And, now I sort of have this full, like multi-passionate life where I feel like I'm so lucky I get to wear all these different hats and do all these things that matter to me. And they're all sort of balanced and So now I work with other creatives and other artists to help build that balance in their own creative lives, which is just deeply fulfilling and fun work for me. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
I love it. So many good things, and I'm excited to dive into kind of each of the areas. But I also have seen some of your artwork, and it's so precious, like the
Oh,
kind
thank
of
you.
mother-child animals, and I'm
Yes.
like, ah, so beautiful. So I'm gonna
Thank
need to be
you.
ordering some of those pretty soon.
I would love
Yeah.
that. I would love that. Yeah, I have two little boys. They're 5 years old and
Oh.
3 years old, and a lot of the parenthood themes in my work, a lot of the mama baby animal stuff started when I was in maternity leave with my second
Oh.
baby, and so yeah, I paint a lot of family scenes right now, just because that's kind of what we're living at the moment. So I'm glad it hits home for you.
Yes, that's so cool. I love that. And I would love to hear, yeah, anything else that you want to share about just kind of who you are, any other like things that make you Lauren, I guess.
Gosh, you know, it's hard. It's always hard to like describe your name tag to someone, like
Yeah, yeah.
tell me who you
So
are
true.
in a couple sentences is always so challenging. For a long time, I felt like I had to have one thing, one title,
Hmm.
like, hello, I'm Lauren the artist, or hello, I'm Lauren the strategist, or hello, I'm Lauren the mom, or whatever. And I felt like if I wasn't devoted to just one thing, then I wasn't actually devoted to that thing, right? And so then I felt like all these different roles were at odds with each other. And what I would say now is that I have embraced the glorious and the fact that,
Yes.
there are so many different titles and values and roles and priorities and like hats that I enjoy wearing. So,
Mhm.
although it makes it complicated to sort of summarize myself, maybe in a couple sentences on a podcast, it does leave a lot of room for all the things in my life that matter to me. And so, I guess that's what I would say is that I'm Lauren
Yeah.
of many things.
I love that. Lauren of many things. That's perfect. Yes. And I think maybe we'll first kind of dive into how you got into coaching in the first place. And I love how you describe your coaching as sort of like bridging that gap between what we, I guess, envision as artists and also then reality on the other side, right? So our kind of ideal and our creative passions and pursuits, but then also the reality of life and just needing to take care of normal life things and focus in on our other priorities as well. So yeah, I think that's such a beautiful I guess mission and purpose behind what you do. So what was it for you that really sparked your love of coaching and helping others?
I guess I've seen that artists have this beautiful power to see what doesn't yet exist, right? So when we're making work, we can have this vision and we can bring it to life and we can create a piece of art, and that's spectacular and special. And when we look at our own lives, we have that same ability to sort of like face forward and think about the future and envision this glorious, beautiful reality for ourselves that we know is possible and that we know we want to create and we want to bring forth. And a lot of us can get really frustrated when that beautiful vision of the future feels so far away and doesn't match sort of the day-to-day ins and outs, paying the bills, washing the laundry, doing the dishes, cleaning the diapers, whatever it is, like
Yeah.
wherever we are in the moment can feel just really far away from this beautiful ideal future. I guess what I wish I had been able to do 10 years ago would be to keep a clear vision of that future and build a clear path toward it that also honors like this is where I am. I'm living a real life. I'm a real person, and all of that realness and all of that complexity is going to have to come along with me while I build this future that I'm dreaming of, right? And
Yes,
a
yes.
decade ago, I didn't have those skills. And so when I first stepped out into being a professional creative, I crashed and burned. Like my business kind of went belly up because I had no idea how to run a business. I knew everything about how to write music and how to be a performer. Had
Exactly.
no idea how to be an entrepreneur, which is what it really
Yeah.
takes to make it in the industry. And so when I was struggling to be a business owner as well as a creative, that was a huge challenge, and it really impacted my creative health. And I wound up in a deep, deep burnout that took me 7 years to recover from. And so now I'm on the other side of that. And I've figured out for myself how to build a balanced art life where I'm both, creatively free and like making the thing and being, in my creative zone, and also feeling like stable and grounded, and like my real life is part of that in a way where it's all working together, it's all clicking, instead of feeling like constantly at odds, like my energy and time aren't just being torn apart by all these different priorities, right? And so now on the other side of learning how to do that and building those frameworks and putting that into practice, now I'm just finding it deeply rewarding to work with other artists. Since I can't go back in a time machine to me 10 years ago, I love working with other artists who are sort of in that same boat where they're feeling overwhelmed and under-resourced and, just sort of parachuting into their world and helping them figure out where they want to go and why they're doing what they're doing and how they can get there in a sustainable way. It's beautiful work. And aside from just connecting with awesome people, it's really rewarding to get to see people strike that same balance and find that same health. It feels really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such a needed thing, I believe, because I don't think you're alone, partly because I know for myself, I've also felt similar things, but I think there's many, many, many artists and creatives who are struggling, like you said, to find the just the practical skills and the business side to help make what they're doing sustainable. And so it can kind of feel like we're just spinning our wheels, or kind of in a hamster wheel or something, and just running, trying to do and not really seeing much forward momentum. And I love that you are now taking kind of what you've learned through your experience with burnout and helping others to walk through that and maybe even avoid it altogether, but also to come out of it as well. So if someone is listening or watching and is thinking like, I kind of feel like maybe I'm in a burnout season, what are maybe a few things that stood out to you, or were maybe signs to you that you were in a place of burnout?
So I think there's a certain desperation that I felt before the burnout hit. So when I was in the burnout, that looked like not wanting to show up to my work, or sitting down to write music and just walking away completely frustrated and unable to create anything, or feeling really dismal about my identity as an artist. Like, do I even deserve to be called an artist if this is how it's going for me? And like, just really like super negative loops, either when I was thinking about making something or when I was in the process of trying to make something. That's what burnout itself looked like. And what I will say is, right before I hit that part, there was this sensation of just scrambling, like this desperate kind of like trying to keep my head above water, just feeling like I just couldn't possibly stay afloat. And I don't just mean financially, I mean like emotionally, spiritually, that whatever the opposite of inspiration is, I guess I'm going to say the inspiration of the opposite for me, the opposite of inspiration was desperation. And when I had that feeling like I just was clawing for ideas, clawing for opportunities, desperate for someone to notice what I was making and acknowledge that they liked it, like just desperate for that, that was the precursor. And that's what I now know is a warning signal, because when we're in that desperate place, it leads us into behaviors and cycles that are really not sustainable and usually don't really serve us very well. And we can sort of start to just allow everything else to fall to the wayside, in terms of our wellness and our whatever connections, our sleep, our health. All of these things can feel less important than scrambling to get this art thing to work, right? And so now I know that that's the moment to step back. And before you get to the burnout, take a pause, reassess, get some help, and rebalance a little bit.
So good. Yes. Thank you for just kind of diving into that and taking us a little deeper. I think people are going to be able to take a self-evaluation and kind of reflect a little bit. And actually, I love, well, I was going to talk about it later, but we'll bring it up now. But I love I think it's Spark or Sputter self-assessment. And it's just really fun. Yeah. Do you want to share a little bit about it?
Thank you. Yeah, sure. So the Spark or Sputter test is something I put together to help people take a pulse on their own creative well-being and balance. So it goes through, it takes about 10 minutes to complete it, and it goes through a series of questions to help you assess where there are places where you're feeling really inspired and supported and creative and healthy and fulfilled, versus maybe there are some places where you're feeling a little bit stressed or stretched or overwhelmed. And what it does is, over the course of these questions, it sort of helps direct you toward where there might be some places that you could make small changes or big changes to bring yourself a little bit more creative balance and get to experience more fulfillment over time. So it's just a free tool. I have it up on my website. You don't even have to, put in an email to download it. It's just at laurenspangler.com.
I was like, it's actually free.
Yeah, it really is. It's just, I just want to put it out there in case it's helpful to someone. So yeah, you can download it and take the quiz, and it's a good starting point, just to build that first level of self-awareness around triangulating where you are on this scale.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that reflection is really powerful, because so often we are moving at a really fast pace and we're not necessarily taking time to think through, okay, how am I actually doing? Where am I at? Where am I hoping to be? A lot of times we do have that ultimate vision, like you said, of this could be what life could look like, but maybe we're kind of stuck as to how to get there. So I loved that assessment. I actually did it myself too. So
awesome. Yeah, so was it helpful? Did you learn something about your own?
It was, yes. I appreciated the different categories and kind of breaking it down. Like, okay, how do you, looking at how you feel, not only with, I guess, like inspiration, but also just the practical things like financial stability, and also do you have support and things like that. So I won't go into the whole thing, but it was really helpful.
I'm glad it was useful.
Yes, I was looking down at my notes. Let's see. I am in the seeking balance category.
Very good.
So yes,
that's a good place to be. And lots of us are in the seeking balance category. Yes.
I think I'm in like a little bit towards the top of seeking balance. So that's encouraging. But yeah, just realizing a lot of us are there, like you said, and that there are steps to take that we can take, and that there's resources,
There's absolutely a path to increasing our balance. And I think sometimes we assume that because we want to do a lot and because we want to be a lot of things and be good at a lot of things, that comes with like this necessary level of frantic imbalance. Like we'll be experiencing this sort of hamster wheel of go, go, go and feeling overwhelmed. And then we sort of explain it to ourselves like, well, I'm trying to do a lot, so I'm going to naturally be stressed and overwhelmed. And that's not actually true. We can still do a lot, but we can do it from a place of greater balance and greater intentionality, and that can help. So yeah, even just the recognition that there are other places you can go in your experience with your creativity, and you can still do the same amount, but not feel the same overload. It can be helpful just to recognize that. For me, that would have been a light bulb moment a few years ago. Yes. I wouldn't have thought it was possible for people to have this much going on and not feel frantic. Anyway, seeking balance. I'm glad it was helpful for you. And I'm looking forward to digging into that some more when we do our little mini coaching. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I feel like you're kind of reading my mail a little bit. Just the idea of, I have lots of, I would say like irons in the fire, lots of things going at once. And so I think I do that. I think I can kind of justify feeling a little bit frantic and like all over the place because there are so many things happening. So this is very encouraging and intriguing to hear, how can I move forward and create a little more balance and rhythm within my schedule and my life. So Absolutely. Maybe we can go ahead and dive into.
Let's do it. This feels like a good time. We're already getting into it.
Exactly. It feels like a good segue.
That's great.
So I'm going to flip the mic and turn it over to you to kind of guide us through this little mini coaching so people can get a
Woohoo.
feel for what it would be like to get to work with you.
Wonderful. Well, first of all, thank you for opening up and sharing your results from your Spark or Sputter test and being willing to do this little mini coaching. So this is really cool.
Yeah, it's a little
Right now, I just want to
intimidating,
hear
but
more.
I'm going to try to be very honest and open.
Yes,
But it'll
honest
be so
and
helpful
open.
too.
Absolutely. We're among friends here, Rachel.
Exactly.
Friends and also the entire internet, but no pressure.
You know,
Um,
I think our,
so
our creative impact community is they're definitely friends. So we can rest easy,
good.
which is good.
Then we are among friends. Absolutely. So tell me more. I want you to just pick up where you left off. I want to understand how this is showing up for you right now, and maybe even where you feel the most, you're describing this feeling of overwhelm, but how does that show up in your day to day?
That's a good question. So just to give a little overview backdrop of what I have going on. So obviously I have the podcast, and that so far has been mostly a passion project, and kind of I almost see it as like a ministry, getting to just bring encouragement to artists. And I love it. Even like if it stayed there, I'd be fine with that. But at the same time, sustainability wise, it would be nice to kind of create a little bit of income off of that. That would be awesome. So there's one area. And then I have a business that I started doing speaking and workshops, and that is mostly working with high school and college students and educators, mostly in the dance space at the moment, although I could see that expanding, kind of the whole vision thing. I get lots of creative and fun ideas and start pursuing them, and then it adds to the platter.
Naturally. So
Yes.
dancing. So are you a dancer?
I am, yes. So I am a dancer and a dance teacher and
Wonderful.
choreographer. So for a number of
Wonderful.
years, I was teaching dance full time, and was also a dance team director for 5 years. And so that about 2 years ago, I stepped away from full time directing and teaching and started that business doing the workshops and speaking. Also started writing, so I've been working on resources for that community and that space. So I wrote a book about a year and a half ago that is really geared towards like dance team. So basically creating those resources, that's a little category and within like the business. Let's see. So I've got those like podcast, my other business, and then the other thing is the teaching and choreographing. So I don't do it full time anymore, but like here and there teaching a ballet class or doing a private lesson with a student. And then I also seasonally am doing choreography in the fall for a Christmas show at one of the churches
Cool.
in our area. So, and that becomes kind of a pretty full-time thing during those few months of the year. So it's kind of like a very seasonal life at the moment. And I don't know that I've found the rhythm in that quite yet. And as far as the frantic feeling, it's not always there, but I think I heard someone say once that you can get addicted to like almost the adrenaline of like procrastination. Mm-hmm. Waiting to the last minute and then having that push to get something done. And I think I have for the most part, I've been able to do quality work at the last minute, or relatively good quality. And so I tend to have towards that procrastination and then ending up like that high stress right at the end before a big event or before I speak or, that kind of thing. So that's maybe feeding into that sense of stress and overwhelm. And then
because this is your rhythm. This is sort of your pattern, right? You leave it to the end, but then you trust yourself. You're going to get to like jump in and get it done, but then of course that lands you in the jump in and get it done energy at the right end of the last minute. Right. Keep going. This is great.
Okay, great. Let's see. So another thing I would say is I do really highly value family and getting to spend time with family, and also friendships and community is a big thing for me. And I found also working kind of in a more entrepreneurial space, it's a little more isolating generally, like
podcasts
for sure. editing and writing and doing like prep for workshops and things like that is pretty much all just me. And so something that I've found is that I tend to go to my coffee shop office a lot because I kind of find I can, and get the energy from the people in the space and but not be distracted by talking to them because they're doing their own thing, So that's kind of, I think, an area of it too, is maybe when I'm just by myself, I tend to kind of fizzle as far as inspiration a little bit. And then when I'm able to like talk through it with somebody, then I feel inspired and more ideas are coming. And so probably a bit of that extroverted nature in this particular moment in my my career and journey. See any other things that come to mind?
That's a lot. You do have a full plate.
Yes.
What else? Is there something else there? Another hat you wear?
Yeah, not necessarily. Well, I say that. So some volunteer work. I tend to love to serve like at our local church, and so help out with the youth group there. And sometimes I'm like saying yes to random things that needs that pop up. And then a little bit of work. I do a little work for my mom's law firm.
Oh, cool.
All the things. But yeah, so for her, it's been kind of on and off over the years and doing kind of as needed if she needed extra legal assistant help or marketing. And right now I'm just doing like a 1 day a week there at the office helping out. So cool. It's a lot of, like I said, a lot of hats, a lot of irons in the fire. And then I think there's just a lot of outside noise that can kind of create that anxiety, stress feeling. And I'm sure you understand, like, it feels like we need to be on social media for our business, but yet it's so easy to kind of get into the like black hole of scrolling and, and then feel kind of discouraged. Yes. And then feel discouraged and overwhelmed because it's like, wow, I just wasted a whole hour and, all the things. So just figuring out I struggle to prioritize and balance my time, I suppose, is the biggest one.
Yeah, that's big. That was a lot, but it's fabulous. That's exactly what I have a sticky note here of things Rachel does, and the entire sticky note is full. So I just want to first acknowledge, there's a lot of things you care about. There's a lot of things you're doing. And if I look down this list, there are a lot of things that require creative energy, right? In your podcast, you're creating workshops. When you're teaching and obviously choreography is going to take a lot of creative energy.
For sure.
When you're writing your book, there's a lot here that is deeply creative. And then on top of that, right, family, friends, community, your work at the law firm, volunteering. So there's a lot. So it's no wonder that the management of all these things within your 24 hours a day, well, wait, you need to sleep. So within, however many hours, 16 hours a day that is, it's no wonder that it can sometimes feel a bit frantic or that creative energy can start to fizzle. Because you've got a lot here. So I heard you talk about when you are home in this entrepreneurial space, but you're not really connected in community while you're working, and how that can kind of fizzle the creative spark a little bit. But you kind of have a good fix there, going to the coffee shop and tapping into community in that way. And then I heard you talk about also this sort of syncing. I don't know that you use that word, but when you're on social media, thinking about how to promote your work and promote your business there, that sounds like it's a little creatively draining as well. What would you say is the number one thorn in your side where, creatively speaking, you're feeling the most strain or challenge?
To think about that. I think, I'm not sure if it's, something that tends to, I think, hold me back is possibly like a fear of rejection, because a lot of what I'm doing is like putting myself out there. At least for my, the workshop and speaking writing portion. And so pretty recently, actually, I kind of had that revelation of I think I'm sometimes holding myself back because out of fear, out of a sense of, anxiety to get criticism or, negative feedback, that kind of thing.
It's vulnerable, isn't it? You put your ideas out in the world, and then, you have to hear what people think about them, and that can be hard.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah.
that's a big one. And then probably just I'm trying to think. Because I feel like the struggling to maybe find that time management rhythm is that's more of a symptom almost than the actual issue.
They can feed
I'm not
each other. It's interesting that you're linking those because, it can really be related because sometimes we find ourselves struggling to manage our time because there's an underlying, like fundamental, there's friction in there somewhere and it's making us avoidant or it's, whatever. But on the other side too, the actual circumstance of having all these things on your plate, having all these hats that you wear, having all these different fires that you're tending or putting out all the time, like sometimes that in and of itself can kind of drain you. You can have these little energy leaks happening as you go through your day and try to attend to all of that. And that can be creatively draining too. And so I wouldn't say one causes the other, just more that they're part of this sort of ecosystem of you and your creativity. And that ecosystem can be a little bit out of balance. And then it can all sort of be a domino effect. This is really good. And these are really common things that I think a lot of artists face and deal with. And so what I'd like to do is I want to sort of change the angle a little bit that we're looking at all of this from. I like to encourage artists to think about the relationship that you have with your creativity. You have a relationship with your creativity, and just like any other relationship that is important to you, your relationship with creativity has to be intentionally cultivated and tended and just like with a friendship or a partnership, when there's not the right balance or there's something that's not clicking, that relationship can start to experience strain. And so when I hear you talking about the fear, the franticness, the fact that you're not really putting things out there the way you'd like to, or you don't really know where you want to spend your time, to me, I think one thing that could help is getting really clear on what is the relationship you want to have with your creativity. What does that look like? How do you want to feel in relationship with your creativity? And then how can we start to change things, big or small things in your daily life so that you're having that relationship more often? And so does that look like, you're spending quality time with your creative energy in a certain context where you're able to focus and flow in a different way? Or does that look like maybe the way that you're just talking about your creativity or, self-talking about your creativity or the way you're showing up in the world to others in this identity as an artist? Like if we can get clear on where that relationship is struggling, sometimes that can point us in the right direction for what those changes could look like. So if you had to personify your creativity and think of it as this entity that you have a relationship with, I know it's a bit of a mental exercise, but are there some words that come up for you? How are you feeling about that relationship in your life right now?
It's interesting because there's part of me that feels like excited to explore new ideas. And so there's a bit of that, like, it's fun and exciting on the one hand. And then I think I do feel a little bit of maybe some of that like apprehension of feeling like I'm not going to, I don't know, experience flow, kind of like you were saying, like I'm going to come up against those roadblocks and kind of maybe fall short in a way. So there's sort of excitement and apprehension, which are sort of similar emotions, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Does that show up when you're sitting down to actually work and make the thing, or when you're on your way to share it with someone, or when you're headed into a workshop? When do you feel that excitement/apprehension the most?
That's a good question. So I think when I'm actually, let's say in like a workshop or speaking environment, when I'm in it, I'm having a lot of fun and I really enjoy it and I'm not really stressed in the moment, which is nice. I would say that I've noticed a pattern of, as I'm working towards a project or an event like that, or an engagement, then it starts off with a lot of like anxiety around it. And because I'm like, I know I want it to be great. And I think I put a lot of pressure on my creativity, I guess. I'm putting a lot of pressure on creativity, person of creativity, to be like perfect and amazing. And so I kind of then, I think I'm procrastinating because I'm afraid that I'm not going to measure up to my ideal of what I want it to look like. And then finally, once I actually start working, it takes a little bit to like get into that flow, but I do find it, I feel like, as I'm preparing. And then it's almost like I feel like I hit a certain point in the process where maybe I feel prepared enough or it starts to click, and then I just get the excitement feeling at that point. Obviously, there's still nerves, like as if you're going on stage before I speak, but not the same, that like dread or anxiety feeling that's in the earlier part of the process.
The balance shifts more toward the excitement once you feel prepared. And before all the ducks are in a row, that's when you feel dread and apprehension and nerves. And Exactly. Oh, yeah. So it's the runway. So it's the runway up to the creative. Yeah. Oh, I get that. I totally get that. There was one time when I was a singer-songwriter, I was headed to a gig and I was so nervous and I felt underprepared and I had that dread, anxiety feeling. And I remember actually thinking, I would love for this bus to crash. Like not an actual severe crash, but like a minor crash that would delay me enough that I could get out of this gig. Where you're sinking your heels in and you're pulling back and you're like, why did I sign up for this? This is terrible.
Right.
Yeah. I want to go back to what you said about putting pressure on your creativity. I think you touched on something real there. Yeah. Yeah. So
I know, that's the first time I thought about that, actually.
Yeah. Well, because
in that perspective,
we think, it helps sometimes to externalize it a little bit, because in a weird way, it's easy for us to put pressure on ourselves, right? You strike me as someone with really high standards for yourself, who loves to create excellent work. You know you're capable of a lot. And so you're okay holding yourself to that and putting pressure on yourself. When we externalize the creativity piece, we can actually, in a weird way, we can trigger compassion, and we can ask ourselves, like, is the pressure that I'm putting on myself an amount of pressure I would put on another being? Or is this just something I reserve? This is a special torture that's just for me, from me, right?
Right.
So when you think about putting pressure on your creativity, I think you're really getting to something there, because, if you don't have clear expectation around what is good enough, or whether you're going to meet the mark, or whether you're going to clear the bar, naturally that's going to create a high degree of apprehension and anxiety until you feel like, okay, I'm going to make it, it's fine. And even if you've done it 100 times before and you've cleared the bar before, my guess is probably each time Rachel walks into this similar circumstance, there's still going to be that dread feeling, because there are new variables and there are new expectations based on where you are now in your career and your skill set. So wouldn't it be nice if you could experience more of that excitement, maybe less of the dread? There's probably always going to be some butterflies in your stomach, but wouldn't it be great if they weren't actually, quite so intense or quite so anxiety ridden?
Yes, for sure.
So let's talk about expectations in a relationship that matters to you. Think about maybe a best friendship or a partnership or a marriage or a family relationship. One marker of a healthy relationship is knowing what you want out of it. And that sounds really selfish and self-centered, but let me explain here. So I have a best friend who lives across the country, and I know that in that relationship, I love to feel supported. I love to laugh with her, and I love to talk about my business, because she's also a business owner. So we kind of trade and we share notes, right? That's a very different set of expectations than what I expect from my mom, right? Who lives here in town. There's a totally different landscape to our relationship. And I know how I want to feel in relationship with my mom and what I'm expecting out of that connection with her. Even though it's a little abstract, to apply that same type of thinking to your creativity, it can be helpful. So if you're going into a creative project and even at the highest levels, are you expecting financial gain from this experience? Are you expecting, energetic, is it fulfilling for your soul and your spirit? Are you hoping to connect with other people? And actually, what I should have contrasted, so my relationship with my best friend, I should have contrasted that to my relationship with an employer, right? When you show up and you have this relationship with your boss at work, there's a very different, there's an expectation that you're going to be learning skills. There's an expectation you're going to be bringing a paycheck home. And if those expectations aren't met, then the relationship becomes unfulfilling, right? So maybe that's a better contrast. So in your relationship with your creativity, sometimes we're really not clear on like, what is success? What do you want to feel when that relationship is successful? And so if you think about like, let's use the workshop. Let's use the workshop example. If you can just get really clear on like, what are the top 3 things that I want out of this? And they don't have to be huge. Like it doesn't have to be a gigantic, it can be as small as like, I find this activity refreshing, or I find connection, I find community here, or maybe it can be something deep, like I want to feel a sense of legacy, like I'm passing on my knowledge and like I'm helping bring people into this craft that matters to me. So it could be a bunch of different things for you. But when you think about what you're getting out of it, in that particular circumstance with your creativity, what would you say you might be expecting, either consciously or maybe up until now subconsciously?
Yeah, so true. I would say, I think I am expecting, I like the legacy piece that you said. I don't know if I would have worded it as legacy, but the idea of making, I guess, creative impact, there you go, but making an impact on
there you go.
people's lives and helping them feel, I don't know, like that I always like to say helping people feel like they have value, whether it's students or educators. And I guess, feeling that sense of like, I have work that matters and I'm doing something that has purpose behind it. So that's one. Another one is I do think I really hope and expect to have financial return from it, to be able to, my goal ultimately would be to build up the business to the point where I kind of have that flexibility, but am able to have a financially sustainable, I guess, aspect to it or career out of it, that kind of thing.
Let's stay there for a minute, because that's sometimes tricky for us to articulate. So it feels weird. I think we all get squirmy when we say like, I want to make money with my work, because it feels like somehow that tarnishes the purity of like our desire to be creative, right?
Yeah.
But the truth is usually like we do want to make money with our work and we're worthy of making money with our work. It can be helpful to tie that desire into the deeper gain or the deeper expectation and desire. And I think I heard you talking, I think you said flexibility. I think I heard you talking about time freedom, that if you had financial gain, you would have the freedom to spend more time on it. Is that right?
Yes, that's true. Yeah. Having, I think that was kind of the original vision, I guess, whenever I stepped away from full-time teaching, is that idea of having more time freedom, being able to be financially stable, but in a more flexible, way with schedule, and being able to have more time to focus on family and friends and all of that. So,
yes. So how does Rachel feel when she is achieving impact and financial gain leading toward time freedom? And if there was another one, I don't mean to cut you off. Was there anything else that you would say is a key desire or expectation?
I feel like I did have a third one. I'm trying to remember what it was now. It'll probably come back to me.
I'm so sorry. I jumped in.
No, it's okay. It's all good. So the financial freedom part, impact, and we were thinking about workshops specifically.
We can think about workshops if that's helpful. Sometimes it's helpful to make it more concrete by thinking about one particular thing. But likely, these values probably are overarching. They probably drive a lot of your creative work. So you don't have to limit yourself just to workshops. If you want to think more broadly, it's all good.
Yeah, trying to think what else. So the third thing that came to mind when you were first kind of listing things off was, I think, having work that is high quality. So something that I can be proud of at the end of the day, or in a really big picture at the end of my life, or like the end of the year, being able to look back and say, like, I'm really proud of what I was able to create or produce. So that's probably tied in a little bit with those expectations. And Yes. The high standard
Yes,
piece,
that
I guess.
push for excellence. That's where those high standards come from. But I love that. I love that intentionality that you're saying, like, okay, I'm going to look back at some point on this lifetime and I'm going to want to be proud of what I created and what I did. And that intentionality is beautiful. So, okay, I heard impact, I heard financial gain and time freedom, and I heard quality and just the pride in your work. Yeah.
Yes.
Those are beautiful. Those are beautiful values. Okay. So, if you're walking into your relationship with your creativity, seeking impact, freedom, and quality, then you can start to now hold that up side to side with the pressures you're putting on yourself and what are those things you're demanding? What are those things you're requiring of yourself before you feel peaceful? Right? So if you need, like, for example, I know a lot of people when they're in a workshop, we'll stick with the workshop scenario for now. When they're in a workshop, a lot of people feel like they have to speak every word perfectly and they'll be like running through their entire spiel like as a script to make sure that they don't accidentally say the wrong word. And that can cause a lot of stress. That can cause a lot of pressure. And my question then would be, if Rachel speaks a wrong word in the workshop or gets a little bit, upside down in the timeline for half a second and has to correct herself, does that jeopardize your ability to create impact, to create freedom, and to create something of quality? Do those things require perfection? Right?
No.
No.
Even though
No.
we tend to think that, but no.
We tend to think that. We feel like perfection is a prerequisite for a lot of this. Now, if you are recording your workshop and creating a product that you would like to be replayed 1,000,000 times over, then maybe the quality value there is going to demand that, yeah, you get your words in the right order. But like, that's just a small example of where if you can start to notice what are the things that are really stressing me out, then come back to these core values and say, like, is the thing that's stressing me out actually inherently necessary if I'm orienting myself to what I really am seeking out of this, right? And so let's take another example. You were talking about social media, which, boy, that's a rabbit hole we could dive right down. But I want to stay in your experience, not necessarily the tactics or like how a business should use social media, because that's a whole different topic. But what I want to stick with is like, what is Rachel's experience when she is in the app with this thought that, okay, I need to be here promoting my business. I'm supposed to be using this platform. But then I'm in this like endless doom scroll and like that doesn't feel good. And you mentioned that it's just sort of a sticky place for you, which probably it is for, I know for me, probably for also everyone listening to this. So if you're in one of those situations where you're like, what am I doing here? Why am I spending all this time on Instagram or whatever it is? You can also use these values as a touchstone to go back and figure out and just like calibrate yourself. Okay, can I use social media to impact? My answer, if I was going to answer for you, would be yes, because here you are with this beautiful podcast and you and I wouldn't be having this conversation. You wouldn't have impacted me at all, right? If you hadn't promoted yourself. But,
True.
Is your social media creating impact? How can you focus your activities on social media on the things that are creating impact? Or same questions apply with financial gain. Same questions apply with quality. Are you creating posts you're proud of? Are you creating work? Are you creating a community that you're proud of? Sometimes I can find that it helps to bring these values back to the surface when we're feeling a little bit disoriented and wondering, catching ourselves at the bottom of that black pit of like totally wasting our time. Going, okay, Why did I come here in the first place? And what can I do to make this time valuable to me? Like deep core purpose value, right? What's coming up for you as I said all of that? That was a lot. So what's it bringing up?
That was really excellent what you just said. I think that probably even just coming into a time where I'm needing to post something on social media, coming into that time, refreshing, okay, these are the core values. These are the things that I'm really here for, I guess, instead of just kind of going in, whatever happens and just kind of being there aimlessly. I think that would be really helpful. So that definitely resonates. And yeah, I think there's also that little bit of like, it's probably a bit of a shame cycle. Like if I am not using my time efficiently, then it sort of cycles around to like feeling shame over not like being the most productive, and
Oh
which
yeah.
also is it's a whole another world of like
Oh
mindset
yeah.
that is common right now. But anyway, all the
Oh,
messages we
for
get about
sure. For sure. And the
productivity and
always
all the
on
things.
culture. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it can
Yeah,
be
yeah,
exhausting. It can be exhausting.
exactly. I think it kind of just feeds that cycle of then feeling down. And then what do you want to do? Scroll social media, right? Because you're feeling down. And it's kind of that, I think, cycle that I get into sometimes. So kind of
It's easy.
figuring out an
It's
exit
easy
ramp.
to get
And
into.
yes. And maybe more,
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, if it's a little bit more like boundaries around it, or if it's trying to like incorporate things that are refreshing for me creatively, rather than, you know,
Yeah.
instead of social media, like having another thing. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah, because no surprise, shame cycles don't feel great. That's not a really
Right.
fun way to spend an afternoon, is just like in a
No.
shame spiral.
Mm-mm.
Probably not on your list of things you enjoy. Yeah. I find
Yeah.
that for me, when I recognize that, okay, I'm in this shame spiral, and it's really easy. It's like this is gonna happen. It's always gonna happen. And instead of trying to avoid it happening completely, the best thing we can do is bring awareness and say, okay, when this is happening and I realize it's happening, I'm gonna throw myself a life raft, and I'm going to pull out of that shame spiral as fast as I can and get myself back on track. And so instead of looking for a perfect track record that you're never going to doom scroll ever again, just give yourself
Mm-hmm.
the tools and the compassion to say, yeah, okay, when, not if, when I see myself doing that, because it's going to happen again, I'm going to extend myself a little bit of grace. And then I'm going to bring in a little bit of discipline and say, okay, I know that I don't like this. I know I'm not going to feel good if I keep doing this. So now I'm going to offer myself a different path, right? I think
Mm-hmm.
part of it can be discipline. You mentioned boundaries. I think it can be helpful to have boundaries that provide structure. I know for me, when I'm in really the creative zone and I'm like actively painting or playing music or whatever, I have a rule that my phone is on airplane mode, or that I'm certainly
Nice.
not on, that social media isn't an option for me, because I know that I will, if I hit a sticking point and I'm feeling uninspired or it's just a hard moment in the process, it's such an easy out to just go
Right.
like dopamine soothe with with
Uh-huh.
scrolling. So there's a boundary. That can be helpful. But sometimes it's not a matter of discipline. It's actually a matter of us being too hard on ourselves and maybe wearing ourselves a little bit too thin. And if I
Mm-hmm.
find myself scrolling and scrolling, sometimes it's actually a signal that I just need to ease up on myself a little bit and take a break.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know why it's harder for me to say, okay, I'm not going to do anything right now. I'm just going to go rest, whatever that means to me. It's harder to say that than it is to just like passively waste an hour
Mm.
feeling like feeling like I'm
Right.
trying to do something. Yeah. So if you find yourself, I guess my suggestion would be, when you find yourself in that social media trap where it doesn't feel productive and you don't feel like you're achieving impact or making something you're proud of, just use it as an opportunity to check in and just like take a beat, take a breath, and go,
Mm.
okay, where am I? What do I need right now? Do I need a boundary? Do I need a break? Do I need to go to the coffee shop and see some humans? Like, what would be helpful? Because even
Yeah.
just that moment of awareness can really serve and really help you kind of pull out of a nosedive. At least it works for me. So I hope it works for you too.
Yeah. Ooh, so good. So good. Well, I'm really excited
And
to go back and re-listen to all of this
yeah,
and just be able to
yeah, I'm
like
excited to hear. I want you to
take it in.
I want you to check in. I want to hear how this is all going for you in a couple weeks after you've had some time to sort of reflect on it. And this is where, if I was wanting to close the full circle, if we were working
Yeah.
together in a more extended way, this is where I think we would start to take this clarity that you're starting to build and extend it and deepen it and turn it into something you can really anchor into repeatedly, right? And so you build
Mm-hmm.
this toolbox where you can reliably get yourself into either an inspired space or a motivated space or a reflective space, or like whatever it is that you need, and to help you show up the way you want to show up in your work. And so what I would encourage, if you feel like it, not as homework, but just as food for thought, would be just within this relationship between you and your creativity, just think about where you want to go over time, how you want that to feel, how you can align the daily actions you're taking, the daily patterns you're creating to help serve those deeper purposes. And then the last piece is how you can support yourself and be supported and create the right support structures and systems to make that sustainable for you over the long run within your daily, daily rhythms. So yeah, thank you so much for opening up about all of that. And I absolutely think you're in exactly the right place on your path, and it will unfold as you walk it, right? So
Yeah.
I'm excited for you.
Thank you. So good. It was so good. Thank you so much. Yeah, very clarifying, even just in the little bit of time we got to have together today. So really grateful
That's
for
great.
your ability to ask questions and dig in a little deeper and just provide a safe space to, for people to unpack what they're experiencing internally, because like you said, it's kind of hard to, it can be abstract. It's hard to process sometimes on our own. So that is super valuable.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Yeah, you're building a lot of really cool things. Like you are really you're making some cool stuff, and the business strategy is the vehicle to do that, but the energy and the internal experience is like the fuel for the vehicle. Does that make sense?
Ooh, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a great analogy for sure. So good. Well, I wish we had more time, but just to kind of bring it back, we'll flip the mic back around, and I would love to hear, I know we spent a lot of time kind of focusing on my journey, but I would love to hear, is there
That's
anything
good.
that
That's
is,
what we needed to do.
yes, is there anything that is just currently been on your heart that you would like to share with other artists right now?
I hear a lot of people talking right now about how rocky things can feel at the moment. There's just there's a lot going on in the world. We're in an election year, which is not known to cause feelings of peace and goodwill throughout the country. There's a lot going on a global scale, on an economic scale. There's a lot going on. I hear a lot of artists talking about their struggle to change as the platforms change, to continue to evolve their business models as the economy changes. Like there's just a lot out there. And I guess what I would say is all of that is creating it's creating an experience from which your art can be born, right? Like all of that can be challenging and it can be heavy sometimes, but it's sort of a, breathe in experience, breathe out art. Like breathe in life's challenges, breathe out like what you're creating to make it better. And I just want to encourage people that even though it might be a difficult season right now, being able to access our passions, be able to give our gifts, being able to connect with people about things that matter to us. It's kind of more important now than ever to help brighten things up. So I want to thank you for creating a space for people to come and do that, and just encourage everyone listening to keep focusing on what matters to them and keep bringing it forward because it's needed and it's appreciated.
That is beautiful and such a good encouragement today. I think people are going to just hopefully have so much like little nuggets of wisdom and encouragement and just have a lot of hope, just leaving with hope, knowing, like you said, that we can create a more positive, future moving forward, and excited for people to get to dive into this in their own lives as well.
And if that was too cheesy and sappy, you can feel free to edit it out.
Oh, it was great. It was so good.
Okay. You just said, what's on your heart? And I was like, well, I don't know. My heart is heavy this week, Rachel.
Yeah, man, it is a lot going on in the world. So I think, and as artists, I think we are maybe even more sensitive to that in a way, because
I think so.
I think we're observing more and maybe taking it in. So I think that's just a really beautiful perspective on, breathe it in and then breathe out the art. And yes, I love that. So a fun question that I like to ask everyone before we wrap up is, what is one of your favorite things right now? So is there something that Could be super small or big, whatever. It could be abstract or like a very specific item. One of your favorite things?
I just discovered a ginger peach tea that I am wild about. I cannot get enough of it. It's good hot, it's good iced. I don't even know what the brand is, so I can't recommend it to you in any type of useful way. But that's one of my favorite things right now. Plus, just taking a minute to enjoy something simple and delicious is, I'm really valuing that right now in this busy season of life. So yeah, a good cup of tea is what I would say.
Ah, so good. So good. I love tea so much. It's like one of my favorite things as well. So great answer.
Oh, yes.
I'm a little biased, but great answer. So good. Well, I would love to let people know let all of our listeners know where they can find you and connect with what you're doing, and especially your coaching for creativity and artists. So yeah, what's the best place to connect with you?
Well, you heard us talk about the Spark or Sputter test earlier. That is the best place to get sort of introduced to me and my work and come into my world. So if you're looking for a way to sort of check in with yourself and your own creative well-being, then head over to laurenspangler.com/spark and grab a copy of that for free. And if you want to see what I'm working on in my studio right now, I do hang out on Instagram. I'm at Lauren Spangler, and I would love to connect there too. And actually, Rachel and I put together kind of an exciting extra little treat for listeners of this particular episode. Yes, so let's tell them about it, Rachel. Go ahead.
Yes, so I'm super excited and pumped. Thank you, Lauren, for being willing to just generously offer your services with the Spark or Sputter, and then also that you have coaching. So if people want to check out your coaching, they can get, I think you typically do like a 15-minute discovery call for people who are interested. Yeah. So thank you for generously like expanding that for our listeners and doing a 30-minute discovery call, because as you can see from our conversation, those who are watching and listening, you could go on for a long time probably and get so much value. So 30-minute discovery call for free at laurenspangler.com/impact, which is appropriate for not only the podcast, but also what we were talking about today.
That was kind of our theme, wasn't it? Yep, that's beautiful.
It was. So laurenspangler.com/impact. And I will definitely link to that in the show notes so people can find it in the description of the episode and also on my website for the podcast. So yeah, anything else you want to share about that?
No, I'm really excited. Yeah, normally I get 15 minutes to chat with people and sort of hear about where they are and what they need help with. And just in talking to you, it became clear that it'd be really cool to have a little bit of a longer time for us to get into even a little bit of coaching and just help me understand, what's happening in your world and how I might be able to help. And so yeah, if you go to laurenspangler.com/impact, it will just take you straight to a booking page where you can book a half-hour slot at your convenience. And then, if you want to take the Spark or Sputter test in advance, like Rachel did, boy, she had just done her homework and she was all over it. But if you don't have time before we talk, that's okay too. We can go through some of those same questions together. So no need to do any homework in advance. We can work through that either in real time together, or you can take it in advance at laurenspangler.com/spark. So either way is good. But if you feel like a conversation, I would love to meet you.
Yay! So excited for people to connect with you. And Lauren, just thank you so much for your heart and for your work and what you are doing and bringing into this world. So excited for people to get to connect with you and kind of check out all the different things that you have going on at the moment with your artwork. And they can also find your music, which is really fun. And then, the coaching. So thank you for taking the time to chat with me today, Lauren. It's been so fun.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you for having me.
Thank you all so much for listening to the Creative Impact Podcast. The music for the show was produced by Michael Cash. Until next time, remember that you were designed to create. You were made to inspire. Continue living with purpose and making an impact. I'll see you next time, friends.